From training to performing, join our big league conversation. Welcome to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast with your host, Eric Cressey.
Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is episode 85. We're back after a brief hiatus, had a good chance to gather our thoughts and come up with some new content ideas, and I've actually pre-recorded quite a few episodes with some really good guests that I think will be super timely with baseball starting back up here really soon. Today's guest is actually one of my really good friends in the college baseball coaching world, a guy who has been super impressive to me just in his ability to take over a program and build it from the ground up, not just in terms of player development, but involvement in the community, high academic kids, just a really cool resource that I've had in my corner working in the greater Boston area over the years. So I'm excited for you guys all to get to know him a little bit. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens, the most comprehensive NSF certified for sport daily nutritional supplement I've ever tried. With so many stressors in life, it's difficult to maintain effective nutritional habits and give our bodies the nutrients they need to thrive. As a father of 3 young kids and a co-founder of multiple businesses in multiple states, on top of still being an avid exerciser, I know that busy schedules can really take their toll on us. Whether it's poor sleep, exercise or life stressors, environmental factors, or simply not eating enough of the right foods, we can wind up deficient nutritionally. This is where Athletic Greens can really help. It's a game-changing nutritional insurance policy. They simplify the logistics of getting optimal nutrition on a daily basis by giving you just one thing with all the best things. And that's why I use it daily and recommend it to our athletes. 1 scoop of Athletic Greens contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients, including a multivitamin, multimineral, probiotic, green superfood blend, and more. They work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet, increase energy and focus, aid in digestion, recovery, and supporting of a healthy immune system. This all can happen without taking multiple products. While most nutritional products come to market and stay stagnant, Athletic Greens continues to obsessively improve this one holistic formula based on the latest research, producing 53 improvements over the last decade. They invest in the most absorbable and natural source of each ingredient and go above and beyond in third-party testing to ensure their customers continue to receive the highest quality and best daily nutritional habit on the planet. It's lifestyle friendly whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and contains less than 1 gram of sugar without compromising on taste. They put 75 ingredients through the NSF for Sport certification to come up with a formula that's trusted by some of the world's best athletes, including our own. Right now, Athletic Greens is giving our listeners 10 free travel packets with their subscription. Simply go to athleticgreens.com/Cressey to receive my offer. These travel packs are perfect for supporting your immune system, energy, and gut health when you're traveling for games, training, or simply when you're on the go. They can be a great counterbalance to less than ideal on-the-road food options. So if you want to bridge the gap between deficient and optimal and give yourself the best chance to get nutrient diversity, then head to athleticgreens.com/Cressey and get your 10 free travel packets today. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Cressey, CRESSEY. Today's guest is a 1999 graduate of Boston College, where he played 4 years as a middle infielder. His senior year, he was selected as first team All-Big East and subsequently signed a free agent deal with the Boston Red Sox. He spent 2 years in their minor league system before transitioning to a special assistant to the major league staff role. He returned to the minor leagues for a coaching position in the organization and subsequently attended the MLB Scout Development Program. He returned to Boston College to join the staff as an assistant coach from 2003 to 2005 before accepting a regional scouting position for the Detroit Tigers. 2 years later, he returned to the college coaching ranks as a recruiting coordinator and assistant coach at Virginia Tech. In the 4 years at Tech, 15 Virginia Tech players were selected in the Major League Baseball draft, including 9 in 2010. The 2010 Hokies made their first appearance in the NCAA tournament since 2000 and finished the season ranked number 20 in the country. He then returned to his alma mater in 2010 as the head coach at Boston College, a position he holds to this day. Over the past 11 years, he's done a remarkable job building a successful program with a reputation of not only competing in the ACC and producing draft picks and 3 big leaguers, but also one that produces high achievers academically. Please welcome to the show, Mike Gambino. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Eric, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to be on here with you.
This is going to be fun because I've seen the rise of BC baseball over the last 10 years and gotten to know you too from your roots and kind of what it started as, what it's become. And Before we kind of dig into like the BC specific aspect, I wanted to talk a little bit maybe about your path to coaching. So what I thought was interesting, obviously you played at Boston College, and then worked into, playing some professional baseball. There were some opportunities in the kind of the Red Sox, like major league coaching staff, then a return to some of the minor league coaching. There was, volunteer experience at Virginia Tech into a coaching opportunity at BC, and then back to Virginia Tech. So I'm curious, like, how did your path to coaching all play out? Did you find it to be a hard transition, or did it come very naturally for you?
Well, the original foray into coaching, I actually got a call in the off season from the Red Sox, c- starting to talk to me about the idea of a job, about going into the coaching side, and and my initial response was, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if I want to coach. I think at some point, but I'm not sure. I might want to kind of play one more year. And the response I got was, well, we kind of think you might be better in a coaching role. So I was able to pick up on those hints that, I was, my playing days were over. And, I was extremely lucky. Spent a couple years in in professional baseball. And um, I always sort of said I just wanted to kind of wring out every ounce of talent out of whatever I had. And I think, for me, I was an A-ball player. I think that's really was my ceiling. It's kind of what I was. And I was really lucky to have that chance to get there and sort of have that opportunity to start coaching at that age was unbelievable. I got great experience. I was able to spend the first half of the year around the major league staff and sort of just being an extra helping hand there. And then I got to spend the second half of the year in the short season in Lowell. So really, really good experience. And in the middle of that, my first year, they also sent me for a couple weeks on to go into and help with the draft.
Nice.
So I all of a sudden got 2 weeks like diving in deep on what the draft looks like, which was awesome. So for my first year coaching, I was really, really extremely lucky. And then I did. I kind of bounced back and forth a little bit between college baseball and professional baseball and scouting, trying to figure out a little bit where I wanted to be long term. I knew I wanted to work in baseball. I know how much I love baseball. But at 23, 24, 25, I was still figuring that out. And the scouting was amazing experience. Getting to go to Virginia Tech with Pete Hughes was a great experience, especially in taking over what was going to be a complete rebuild there, and the success we were able to have there. And then when this job opened up here 10 years ago, having gone here, and I knew it had to have a long-term vision here because I knew it was going to be a long build. I knew it wasn't going to be a quick fix. I knew we were pretty far away as far as facilities and competitiveness. Like there was a lot of work, but it's my alma mater. I love Boston. I love this area, and I really believed in the sort of the long-term vision of what we could build here. So, yeah, it was kind of a crazy back and forth path. But in the back of my mind, I always kind of hoped the opportunity would come up here at Boston College.
What do you think your biggest adjustments from playing to coaching were? Like, were there things that you struggled with in that initial period?
One of the best advice I got. Arnie Baylor was my manager in A-ball one year, and um, I played from some great managers. Arnie Baylor was one of them. Mike Bollinger was one of them, and guys that sort of like I think had the idea that I might go into coaching someday. And Arnie especially took me under his wing and would kind of include me in a lot of conversations. And I remember he said to me one time, he said, "Remember, the farther away from playing you get, the easier the game was." And he's like, that was like, and I was still playing at the time. And when he first said it, I was like, I had to kind of think about it. And then, but I remember that going into coaching because sometimes we go into coaching and as a coach, you're like, well, we'll just do this. Or why didn't you just do that? And we've got to remember coaches, man, this game is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so that line and that idea really helped me. And then, just you see the game from such a different light. And I started being early on just looking at, and I, in my first coaching job, when I was coaching the short season Lowell, I was coaching with guys that some of which I had just played with. So I had this, really good relationship with them and was able to, to have this relationship where I was working through stuff with them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because 6 months ago, we were in the cage together, just working. And now I'm coaching them. And in a lot of ways, that's sort of affected how I coach that when I'm working with players and it's part of how we treat everything in our program, like we're on this journey with them. It's not, this is, do this because I said so, or everybody has to do it this way, right? It's how are we working through this together to kind of help you get where you need to go. And sometimes as a coach, that working through this together means, hey man, that's not good enough. That effort wasn't good enough, or you need to be here on time. Like that's also working through together. Sometimes it has to be a hard conversation, but sometimes it's saying, hey man, I know this is really hard. Let's try a couple things and see if we can get through this together.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a theory on like players that go into, managing, and, some have good outcomes, some don't. I think one of the things that, and I've talked about this a little bit in the podcast in the past, so it's a little redundant for some of our listeners, but I think, when you're an athlete, you have to be inherently selfish, right? You have to eat the right stuff. You have to sleep at the right times. You have to be, singularly focused in like developing your craft. And when you coach, it's the exact opposite. You have to be really selfless. You have to invest in people. You have to get to know them on a really deep level. You have to ask questions so you can get through to them. And I always think this is why, like, we see, former catchers, be such good managers in many cases. Like, they're forced to serve a pitching staff. It's all about serving. And like for you, you were kind of like the super utility infielder, right? Like you could play anywhere they needed you to play. Like, do you think some of that almost like role player status was something that served you well in the years that followed?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, I was, a lot of the guys, especially that we coach at this level, the athletes that you get to work with, they were the best players all the way through.
Mhm.
I wasn't that kid. I wasn't, it wasn't just something that always came easy to me. And it was also really ingrained into me um, from a really young age. From my mom and dad. My dad coached me in a bunch of different sports when I was little, but the team comes first. All that matters is the team, and what can you do to make your teammates better. That was like part of what I was taught really early from my dad. And I mean, I can remember even arguing with my dad going back to like, 7, 8-year-old rec basketball, like just a Saturday morning rec basketball, right? Where like my dad was coaching and I was mad because, this is a rec league. Everybody plays the same amount of minutes. This is little kids running around and I wanted to play more.
Mhm.
And I remember my dad saying, it's not about you. It's about the team. Like, stop, enough, or, I remember, back, this is back when everybody played American Legion and making your American Legion team was a big deal. And I remember making the team and my dad just being like, hey, whatever they need you to do
Do it.
to help this team win, you do it. And so that was always, and honestly, it's part of what we look for in the recruiting process. The part of a kid's personality, kids that are attracted to being part of something bigger than themselves,
Mhm.
is something that's really important to me. And it's the kids that we want to recruit here. So going back to your question about catchers, catchers, they realize their job is not about them,
Mhm.
right? Like, I don't want to get hit by this baseball,
Yeah.
but getting hit by this baseball is going to help my pitcher. This is about him. I'll get hit by this baseball, right? I mean, so I think that part of a personality, and to me, that's what coaching is about. I mean, it's for this in this program. I always sort of say the better things are going in this program, the less anybody's going to see my face. And rarely, unless I'm forced to, I rarely do post game interviews after wins. Um, to me, it's about the boys, it's about the team, it's about the program, and I only ever want guys talking about the players and the team and the program, and so that personality trait I think leads to good leaders and good coaches, and that's the kids we try to recruit.
I like it. All right. So circa 2010, 2011, I remember you came out to the facility to work out with Kevin Youkilis. You guys are tight, really close friends. It was right after you got the BC job. And I remember you said something to me. It stuck out in my mind. You said, we don't want to just be a place where guys go because they can't go to Virginia. We want to be the place that guys go to when they want to come to BC in the first place. Like, describe what you were feeling then. Like, what was the background for that? And then, how things have changed over the years.
Yeah, I do remember that, and like I say, Kevin, Kev's family, we've been friends for a really, really long time, and I remember I just got up here. A side note of that story, it's something I've always, you were really just kind of starting to really build at that point, and it's been really cool and fascinating, for me to watch, and obviously we've become close friends over the years, but to take, you were more than just a small little gym at that point, but just like one step past a small little gym. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
You were just starting to expand. You were just starting to get a good group of guys. You had a couple big leaguers starting
Yeah.
to come in there. People were just starting to hear about you,
Mhm.
and then sort of watch the continual build and growth that of what you have done with your business. Your business, your brand, your career, everything has been really awesome and fun to watch. And I'm proud to watch you do that as a friend. It's really cool.
Thank you.
But yeah, so coming out there when I first got up here, Virginia, for a long time has been a really good program, and especially at that point when I first started having these conversations with kids up here, we were sort of like their second and third choice when I first started all the time. It was always like we'd be recruiting kids and they liked this, but they wanted to see what was going to happen with Virginia. I used Virginia as an example, but it was Virginia, it was Stanford, like a lot of these different programs that we were just kind of having to wait on, and people didn't look at us as a first choice at that point. Um, and partly I understood a little bit why. I mean, we had some of the worst facilities at that point in college baseball. Really up until about 3 years ago, we'd probably some of the worst facilities in college baseball. So we were behind in facilities. We were in the spot that we were starting a rebuild. So I knew we were gonna kind of scuffle on the field for a couple of years. Um, and again, so we had to look at in my head, a 5 and a 10-year plan.
Mhm.
Right? We're early on, and this is not a quick rebuild place. Boston
Yeah.
College is not a quick turnaround place. For a couple different reasons, but for one of which, and I know this is commonplace in college baseball now, and I don't love this part of our profession now, but nowadays in rebuilds, people come in and bring 25 kids in the first recruiting class and 25 kids in the second recruiting class,
Mhm.
and you just run out, and 50 kids get dumped along the way, kids that were on the roster, and all of a sudden there's a new roster in 2 years.
Yeah.
You look at these kids, those are life changing events, and some of the kids that were here that those we have some kids that they're in those first couple teams that are really successful in their jobs. Some got a chance to play professional baseball. They're great kids. They got Boston College degrees. I just didn't believe in coming in and flipping a roster right away and leaving
Yeah.
kids high and dry. I just didn't believe that, and they're great kids.
Mhm.
Um, so the the first 5-year plan was like, what do we need to do to really start to it was about recruiting to really get competitive in this league, um, to start showing that we can develop players, to start showing that we can have guys drafted out of here consistently, right? And also start this fundraising push and start this longer vision of getting a facility built.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was early on, and then lucky enough, you have Chris Shaw as a first round
Yeah.
pick in 15. You have Justin Dunn as a first round pick in 16. We're one win away from Omaha in 16. Michael King, who gets the big leagues, last year and a half ago now.
Mhm.
You have these guys starting to come out, and all of a sudden people are like, man, there's prospects coming out of there, and so that was kind of that first 5 years, and then the next 5 year plan, the next part of the 5 year plan that I had originally was years 5 to 10 was let's get these facilities going.
Yeah.
And so on top of the winning consistently and adding more draft picks out of there, and I think I think in 2019 I think we were a bubble team. We were just out. I think we should have been in. I think last year we had a real chance to go to Omaha. Last year's team I thought was a legitimate Omaha contender, obviously before COVID hits, and
Mhm.
um, but then 3 years ago you opened the Harrington Athletics Village. All of a sudden we have a new stadium, and then we move in this year to the Pete Frates Center, and all of a sudden now we have a player development building next to it. So, going back to that comment, it was like, yeah, I knew when we got here we were not going to be the first choice for a lot of kids. It was going to be, let's see what other places are doing, and if not, then I'll look at BC, and we've got ourselves to the point now where now you butt heads with anybody in the country. BC is a place that we had one of our committed kids tell me the other day. He's like, Coach, all of my friends, all they want to do is like tell coach about me, tell coach about me, tell coach about me.
Mhm.
And that's a recent phenomenon here.
Yeah. I think it's great because a key part of that is like development came before you thinking that anything was owed to you. You know what I mean? Like you had to come in and prove, hey, this is a place that's a high academic institution where we can develop baseball players, even with less than ideal circumstances. Like, there were cars being parked on the baseball field during football games and stuff. Like
Yo, yeah.
guys knew that was going on, and that was something you had to recruit against in many cases. But when you start seeing Shaw and Dunn and King, surging through professional baseball, and not only that, like taking Miami right to the brink and almost making it to that next level, like guys saw that, and it automatically led to that next level of this makes recruiting easy. This makes it easier to get improvements in facilities. You gotta show a quality product first, and I respect that a lot.
And two things. One, we never hid from that.
Yep.
Right? Like I didn't. There was nothing about even this junior class. I mean, people are talking about this junior class is arguably one of the best recruiting classes in the Northeast ever. And
Yep.
with all due respect to some of those classes that had Springer and that, like this isn't the conversation for one of the best classes ever.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys thought they were playing on Shea Field.
Yeah.
Everybody that we recruited in the past, we said, look, these are our facilities.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't think you can get better here, then don't come. Right? Michael King still jokes and laughs about it. He's like,
Yeah.
sometimes I thought you weren't even trying to recruit me because you were being so honest. You're like, but like I used to tell kids, we're going to be in Omaha on this field. We're going to be in super regionals, like like we showed we could be. But these are the facilities. That's where we were in 2010, 11, 12, 13 in our recruiting process. And so I would bring them out there and yes, at that time people tailgated on the baseball field for football games. I mean, that was real, and there were actually cars parked, and there was actually porta potties on, in parts of the outfield for Friday night, for Friday afternoon practice. That was all real, and I didn't hide from it. I didn't. I just, and I just told kids that, we believe we can develop big leaguers here, and we believe we can compete to go to Omaha here. And if you don't believe that also, then don't come. And the kids that came believed in it and showed you could, and we'd had that success in the past because you look back at, in the program before, Tony Sanchez and Mike Belfiore had gotten the big leagues, not too long ago, right?
Yeah.
So for the right type of kid with the right mentality and that toughness, you could develop here, but it was a hard sell.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, we told our kids then, and we tell our kids now, you don't deserve anything.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to hear this word deserve. Like we're gonna fight, we're gonna scrap, and at that point in our program, the number one most important thing to me, and it has not changed. And it doesn't mean winning is not important. Winning is critically important, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we are built on our player development system.
Yep.
This program is first and foremost about player development, and I believe if you do a great job with your formation, that idea of formation
Mm-hmm.
is a very Jesuit term, right? In a Jesuit education, the idea of taking your students, you're not just educating them, you're helping form them, right? How we do that on the baseball field, if we're obsessed with that, and you're helping develop their character, you're helping them reach their potential in the classroom, you're helping them reach their potential on the baseball field, and you do that really well, that becomes built into your culture. The work ethic becomes built in your culture. The character is built in your culture. The winning takes care of itself, and the dog piles happen. And honestly, that's even how we built the Pete Frady Center. The very first meeting I had with our AD at the time was Martin Jarman, who's he's now the athletic director at UCLA,
Mm-hmm.
and Father Leahy. They said, "What are the most important things for you as we start designing this building?" Father said, "Give me your three most important things." And I think he was thinking like something in the building, and I said, "Father, player development, player development, player development."
Mm-hmm.
Every decision gets made on that, based on that. And like he was surprised. He's like, "You're not going to put your office down there?" I'm like, "No, I want every dollar spent on the development of our athletes. That's it."
And it's showing. I mean, you got three guys that are projected to go in the first day of the draft. That says a lot. And I'm curious. Let's build on that. So I know you have a background in both scouting and player development. Your roster is probably 90% Northeast guys, right? You have some New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. And then there's a few California, Texas, Florida guys mixed in. Have you been burned in the past by players who have come from warm weather climates, who can't handle the cold in Massachusetts? Or do you think it's more something that's just happened maybe more organically because you guys, from a scouting standpoint, have greatest proximity to Massachusetts and Rhode Island guys?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think one, you have to be, in the past there had been a stigma about coming north,
Mhm.
right? So, we had to show that, we had to sometimes show that you come to the Northeast, this is a great baseball town, We're playing in the best baseball comps in the country. Now we have facilities to match up with anybody. But in the past, you sort of had to fight that facilities Northeast thing, which was true, right? 4 years ago when a kid came up and saw these facilities. So you had to fight that a little bit. One of the things I love multiple sport athletes.
Yep.
I love 2 and 3 sport athletes. It seems, and this is somewhat of an overgeneralization, that out west and down south, there's a lot less multiple sport kids. Kids are specializing a lot earlier. And I know there's a lot of arguments both ways. I believe it's better for kids to play multiple sports all the way through. I think it's better for their overall development in a lot of different ways, both physically, mentally, everything. And I just love kids that want to compete, right? I want the kid, and I hate to take a knock on the showcase culture that we've created, or whatever, but I want kids that want to go out and try to win or lose.
Yeah.
And choose to play, football or basketball or hockey, that, and be on part of a team. And, sometimes they're not the best player on that team. And, how do we work together to reach your goal? I want kids that are attracted to that, because they'll then do it on the baseball field. And that also tends to be kids that have the biggest jumps because they haven't been playing.
Yeah.
The full-time baseball kids, a lot of times are really good. You don't sort of have the exponential growth. You have the continued development, but you see a lot more of the sort of hockey stick exponential development with 2 and 3 sport kids. They just haven't had the reps. So it's a little bit of both. And we spent a lot of time. My number one thing, and I learned this a lot actually when I was scouting for the Tigers. Dave Dombrowski was the GM, and he used to drill it into us: get the makeup right, get the makeup right. And on our staff here, we talk about it all the time: get the makeup right. Who have we talked to? If we've only talked to one of their coaches, it's not enough. Talk to their summer coach, talk to their high school coach, talk to their basketball coach. Have we talked to somebody in the high school? Have we got to their guidance counselor? And it doesn't mean you can't do that around the country, but proximity helps with familiarity, right? They're on campus more. You're able to build a better relationship, and so so it's sort of a little bit of both of what you said of how it came about.
I like that. I'm not even sure there is a debate on the multi-sport side of things. We've got research over and over again that shows those guys stay healthier. If you're on a field, you're going to be more likely to develop as a player. There's no doubt about it. So,
I would agree with you. I have a hard time when people try to debate it. But there are people that say you have to specialize early, and I think it's bad in all the sports. I think it's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, this is your world. You know this better than I do. But the repetitive use injuries, you can go through each sport, and you know what it's going to be, right? And girls lacrosse is their ACLs, right? I mean, it's each sport has a thing that when you're only doing this one thing, this is what's happening to your body.
I think, the other one too is just from a pure, outside of the actual physical aspect of it, I think it teaches you to roll with different social circles. And, I even think time management. I can remember having a conversation with Mike King and his dad when he was probably a sophomore, maybe a junior at Bishop Hendrickson. And, he was getting really excited about more involved long toss and developing his arm, and he was still playing hoops. So he was a guy who would go to basketball practice and he'd be playing catch, simulating long toss in the gym after basketball ended, because he had to be ready for that third Monday in March when baseball season got going. That's time management. You learn how to make it work because you have to get the work in, and it's not magically going to happen if you wish for it. You have to make time instead of finding time.
I agree 100%. And I also think there's something, 25 years ago, you picked up your glove and your bat when the winter sport ended, right? So we're past that. I understand that. But at the same time, I think there's something really valuable, and nobody loves the game of baseball more than I do. I honestly love it, but there is something valuable about having, whether it's one season or two, where you're just competing at something else. We're just beyond the physical part of it, which is critically important, but just competing at something else. And there are transferable skills. They are, right? It might not be exactly helping you get glove side on your fastball, but I tell you what, man, when you're not the best player on your basketball team and your job is to guard their best player and rebound, that's a transferable skill, man. The toughness, the grit, the being part of the, and one of the other funny things is I have it with kids all the time. I had this conversation with a kid the other night. He's like, I'm thinking about not playing basketball because, and obviously COVID time's a little bit different, but just, his high school season they were going to have a shortened season. They were getting ready to get going. And I said, well, what are you going to do? He's like, well, I really want to work on my, my speed and my agility and my quickness. I'm like, well, what are you going to be doing at basketball practice every day? I'm like, you're essentially doing that at basketball practice. I mean, I know it's not exactly the same. I'm like, but look at all the footwork you're going to be doing every day at
Yep.
basketball. That is somewhat transferable. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't go get some extra sprints or some bursts at the end. But so yeah, I am all in on and again, it's not like we don't want to recruit the rest of the country, and it doesn't mean, I mean, Mason Pellier was one sport, Southern California, one sport kid, and he's worked out pretty well, and like you said, he's one of the guys that's gonna be a first round pick this year. But that multiple sport, Northeast kid, super athletic but super competitive, and that's just sort of the model of the kid that we love.
I love it. All right, so I'm curious. We kind of glazed over it a little bit, but what are the biggest mistakes you see high school players and their parents make in this outreach to college? Right. So you're being recruited now. Like they're trying to get to
Hmm.
you. So, what are your top recruiting pet peeves?
Well, I will tell you, and it's changed a little bit because
Mm.
in the past, I would have told you when parents are overly involved. But that's back when you were recruiting kids that were, juniors going into senior year.
Yeah.
Right? There's got to be a certain point when the kids are able to take it over on their own.
Yep.
Nowadays, unfortunately, I hate it, but some of the conversations you're having with freshmen and sophomores, I don't blame the parents that they want to have at least.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this: when my son or daughter, if they're good enough to be recruited at some point, or even take that out, when my son or my daughter is 14, 15, 16 years old, if they're on the phone with an adult,
Yeah.
I'm probably going to at least want to know who that is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, I will tell you this, that I do understand parents wanting to be somewhat involved, but, the kids have to sort of be um, at the sort of front
They got to be
of the
the
recruiting
point
process.
man.
They got to be the point man. They have
Yep.
to take some responsibility. They have to take some ownership. Um, I think one of the, you know, I think there's sort of a fine line that over involved,
Hmm.
and I'm going to generalize, but it tends to be dads
Yep.
who um, talk about it as a we thing,
Hmm.
sort of that living through the player, because then you have a hard time trying to find out, is this what the kid really wants?
Yeah.
So that's one of the mistakes they makes. But one of the other mistakes I think, especially with how young kids are, when parents say that this is going to be the kid's decision on his own,
Hmm.
because they're not quite ready to make these decisions on their own now
Yeah.
at 16 years old, um and I think this is a little bit off your question, but it's the same idea. I think one of the mistakes that kids and parents are making right now is they're worried about what the kid thinks is cool right now. And the problem with that is cool is so fickle.
Hmm.
And what a kid thinks is cool at 15 and 16 is not what he's going to think is cool at 21, 22.
Yep.
And so both his age is going to change, but also it's a long ways away. You're 5 years away sometimes, from, or, 3 to 5 years away from that, from, being really part of that team and in that culture. And a lot of things can change. So I think the biggest thing I think parents and kids need to do is slow down, which is, and this is a hard time. In COVID times, it's hard because nobody's been on the baseball field.
Yep.
Nobody's been able to recruit for so long, so I understand. But it's hard because parents and kids are going through this for the first time. Sometimes, a lot of times, they get one shot at it, right? If you have multiple kids that go through the recruiting process, you can learn, but um, they get one shot through. So they gotta spend a little bit of time. The parents have to help in the right amount, meaning be somewhat involved but not overly involved. Um, to help sort through what is the real stuff, what is it that we're actually looking for
Hmm.
in a school. How important are academics? How important is location? How important is size? How important is conference? So I think all those things, and I think a big mistake kids and parents make is they tie their self worth into the bumper sticker or the
Yeah.
back, or the sticker on the back of the car, and they think, you know, my my kid's cooler, or I'm cooler, or I'm better if I get to go to the school where sometimes the right fit. Sometimes the right fit might be the really good academic local Division 3 school because it fits exactly what you're looking for. And it doesn't matter, right? And sometimes people think, well, the SEC is cooler because of this, or the Pac-12 is cooler, and they miss sort of the point of what it is they're looking for, what they should have been looking for. We'll see it a lot of times if we talk to a kid and as they start learning the process, the schools that they are starting to focus on, right? if they are all over the map, literally location-wise, all over the map academically, and all over the map size-wise, then I'm like, I don't think they are really sure what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? Once you start narrowing it down, you should have a pretty good idea of this is about where I fit talent-wise, which is hard, but you have to have people around you that you trust and people around you that can be honest and have hard conversations with you, right? To say, look at your son, this is where he fits. And it's okay. It's okay that he's not good enough to play at this school. And I know that he would like to go there, and I know that you would like him to go there, but he's not good enough to play there. Here are some other schools that are similar. So you have to have people around you that you trust, and then you have to be honest with your kid and honest with yourself.
Right on. So, I think, you also were both a hitting and a pitch infield coach, right? So, talk to me a little bit about, from the pure player development standpoint, what are the crucial competencies? You bring in a shortstop, you bring in a third baseman. What are things that you see? Because we both know, like, pre-pitch preparation and moving runners and stuff like that. It's not getting highlighted in showcase ball, right? You hit homers and get flashy and show off is what's happening a lot more in youth development. So, what are the crucial competencies you try to establish in these two areas when kids get to BC from high school? I mean, are there shortcomings you see in the average skill set that comes in for a Division I player that you're encountering these days?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two things I'll hit on with that. One, excuse me, I agree with you, and we spend a lot of time trying to find and trying to watch the kids in situations where they're playing real baseball, because just seeing them throw in the showcase doesn't tell me if they can get out of a jam. Doesn't tell me what they're going to do if they give up a 3 spot in the first, or they go single walk in the third. Now it's first and second, nobody out. Like, how are they going to handle it? Or what are you going to do in the fifth when you're exhausted and you're an 84? You're at, high school kid. You're at 84 pitches, and there's 2 outs, and we need you to get this out. Your team needs you to get this out. What are you going to do? Like, we spend a lot of time trying to watch these kids, trying to find them in those situations, so we can get baseball players. And I know we're going more and more showcase and more showcase, but you got to play the baseball game.
Yeah.
And so we do try to find that, and we try to work on that when they're here. That's spending time teaching the game as well as teaching the skills is really, really, really important to us. So I know it's sort of just got a little bit sidetracked on that, but one of the problems, and I'm putting air quotes around problems, that we find is the talent level that these kids have hides sort of mistakes and shortcomings, if that makes sense. So you have a kid, we'll get kids coming in that are 92, 93. They didn't have great fastball command. They weren't great at controlling runners. They weren't as great with their secondary as they thought, because the fastball was just too much. It just dominated the hitters they were facing. So the breaking ball might not have consistently been a strike, but they thought it was because it got swung at most times. So they thought it was a strike more than it was, or their fastball command actually wasn't as good as they thought. It was just too much velocity. Now these guys can handle the velocity.
Yeah.
Right? So, and the same, you sort of see the same thing with our infielders. We get kids whose hands and feet and arms are so good that they don't have to have everything synced up correctly. Their footwork around a double play doesn't have to be great. They thought it was because they were better than everybody else. An analogy that I'll use is, we actually get the same thing in the classroom sometimes. Well, it's a top 30 academic school here, and we get kids. We recruit high academic kids. The problem is sometimes the kids we get weren't actually great students. They thought they were. They got great grades. They had a 4.0. They got the 13 something. But they were just so much smarter than everybody that they didn't actually develop the habits of becoming a great student. And then they come here and they're like, oh man, everybody's this good.
Yeah.
And they have to develop the habits to become a better student. That's what we spend a lot of time with. What are the little things that are going to take you? Yes, you were better than everybody else there, but now here, everybody's this good. So now we have to go back to work on your pre-pitch routine. We have to go back to, we talk about with our infielders, we go back to kindergarten every fall. How do you feel the ground ball? I mean, seriously, like, how do you, what are your, your left, right kick out step? What does it look like to turn a double play from the second base side for all of our guys? And one of the other things that we've done with our infielders, we always do this. All of our infielders, not your first baseman, they play all 3 positions they learn all three positions. They play all three positions all fall, and even in a bit in the preseason,
Mhm.
which I've been doing here forever because I'm a big believer in, and
Yeah.
has become even more important as you see. We use analytics a ton in what I believe are the right times.
Yeah.
We've been shifting here. I mean, you made that comment to me.
Yeah.
I remember you came in a game like 8 years ago now when a lot of people were shifting. You're like, what are you doing? Like, you're moving these guys around a lot, and then college
Mhm.
baseball that wasn't happening really
Yeah.
hardly at all. Um, but the guys need to be able to play all over the field,
Mhm.
both for their own careers and also because you could put anybody anywhere at some point.
Yeah, it gives you adjustability.
It gives you adjustability, right? Um,
I love that. And like, let's be honest. Like, I remember a conversation actually with Jim Penders back in the day at UConn. He was like, we recruit a lot of pitchers, catchers, and shortstops because
mhm.
I know that usually those shortstops are the best players on the field, the best athletes, and you can move them around as needed. That guy can become a right fielder or play second if his arm's not good enough or something like that. So, something to be said about being athletic.
Exactly right. And if I sort of agree, and we did it early on. Our first couple of recruiting classes, we legitimately only had shortstops in them, and then spread them out. And now we get a little bit more specialized, but predominantly, we do recruit a lot of shortstops. One of the differences here, we'll be honest with kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sal Frelick was a shortstop, and told him
Yeah.
like, I don't think you're not gonna play shortstop here. I know you're a shortstop. You're gonna come in and you're gonna play second base or center field.
Mm-hmm. It worked out all
You
right
know,
for him, right?
I think he's gonna play center field in the big leagues for a long time.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good segue to my next question. So you've been there over 10 years now, and you've got a good sample size of guys who are not only getting to pro, but also guys that are making it to the big leagues. What are the characteristics you've seen in those guys that differentiates them and allows them to compete at that next level when they all come in, presumably somewhat on the same ground as freshmen at BC?
I think a couple things that, I actually had somebody say to me that I was actually really proud of this as a compliment to our players. Um, I had somebody say about our program recently that if you look at our program, our guys have um, an, a lot of success in professional baseball. Not just the guys that get the big leagues, not just Justin Dunn and Michael King and Chris Shaw, but also guys like Joey Cronin, who got up to Double A with Minnesota. He was a senior, drafted after a senior, was not highly recruited kid out of high school, right? And had a ton of success in professional baseball. Or
Mm-hmm.
Donovan Casey, who's in Double A with the Dodgers. That regardless of the talent level, if that makes sense, or when they went into professional baseball, our guys play longer. They tend to have more success. They tend to be, and I think that has a lot to do with what you just asked about. That you try to make sure that you're recruiting kids with a certain amount of drive
Mm-hmm.
on and off the field, and then try to teach them how to prepare because what you're preparing for becomes different,
Yeah.
right? So and you know this. I mean, you and I talked about this for years. What an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid is doing in the weight room is going to be different than the 29, 30-year-old. It doesn't mean you don't have to work as hard anymore when you're 30, 31, 32, but your body's in a different spot. There's different things you need to be doing. There's different things. Sometimes our guys need to be when they first get here. Raw strength is important to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're 32, you're not worried as much about raw strength. You're
Yeah.
making sure your movements are, and not
Yeah.
that movement quality is not important for college kids, but
Yeah.
those things change, right?
Yeah.
And what you're preparing for on the baseball field will change. The information that you're getting, but so the kids that become really, really focused on their preparation, focused on their process. I also think guys that are really, really focused on winning, it actually helps them when they get into professional baseball because professional baseball is inherently so selfish in the minor leagues,
Yeah.
right? And it's so hard to figure out because you got guys around you moving up and down, and why does that guy get moved up, and this guy just got traded, and sometimes if you can just really worry about the controllables and like, you know what, I'm just gonna worry about helping this team win,
Yeah.
then it can just help you play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to Justin a little bit. That was one of the things he struggled with when he first got into professional baseball was he cared most about winning, and there were times that in lower levels that it's just not important.
Yeah.
And he just wanted that team. And it was one thing that he loved so much in Seattle last year. It was a group of guys that were closely knit and cared about winning and playing together. And so, I think when we recruit guys like that, it also allows them to have that success in professional baseball. And on top of that, it's also built into our program, everything we do, that that sort of to be able to handle adversity and to be able to handle when things go wrong. And we talk because it's gonna.
Yeah.
It's gonna, like for all of them. So, and Chris Shaw talks about one of the most important things with him getting in the big leagues. Chris Shaw hit 160 as a freshman, actually. And to be honest, he and I both joke about it, but I think he hit like 340 the last 2 weeks to get up to 260. I'm sorry, to get up to 160. But he talks about hitting 160 as a freshman was one of the most important things in his development, and that helped him get to the big leagues, to learn how to get through that, to learn how to handle that adversity.
I've heard
I'm
similar
sorry,
stories,
adversity.
and that's not I hear stories about David Price wanting to leave Vanderbilt after his first semester. I remember Aaron Judge talking about struggling at Fresno State as a freshman. There's a track record of those, and it's how those guys respond to adversity that matters the most.
Justin Dunn didn't pitch in his first weekend at BC, and we talk about a bunch. And he didn't make a travel squad freshman year. He wasn't ready, and one of the biggest things in his growth and development was realizing he wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Because at first he was mad about it and pissed and why am I not playing and da da da. And then when he all of a sudden realized, like, look, man, I got to throw more strikes. I got to be able to command my secondary. When he made that maturation, when that maturity started to come in, and he was able to look and say, okay, this is why I'm not getting the ball as much as I would like. And if I start, and all of a sudden, boom, it started to come.
Yeah. So you guys just did an amazing, build out on the baseball and softball complex on campus. What are the important amenities that provided for you that you guys didn't have? I know you mentioned it's all about player development. What are the specifics that you were requesting in that process?
Yeah, so in phase one in Pellegrini Diamond, one of the most important things was just to have a baseball field that was ours all the time, right? That's 3 years ago. Being able to do that, to know where we were playing all of our home games, and to not, like you mentioned before, have to worry about Saturday tailgating affect our practice for a week. So, that was sort of the easy initial thing 3 years ago. Coming in as we opened up the Pete Frady Center this November is, again, just focused on player development. The second floor of the building is 7 cages that we can raise and lower all the different screens to open up to any sort of configuration we would like. So you can have 7 cages going, or you can have some double cages if you want to go live. You can open it all the way up to throw, to long toss and air it out. We can do some ground ball work. It's not a full diamond, but you can do PFP work. You can do ground ball work. You can do all that stuff in there. And then to have all the technology in there, the hit tracks, in there, and then one of the machines that we put up there on the second floor that we're really excited about, that I know you and I have talked about, is the Proteus Machine, which I think is an absolute game changer for us. As it stands right now, we're the only Power 5 program in the country to have that, and the information that's going to give us about the health of our guys, and the baselines it's going to give us on top of what it's going to do for our player development, both for our pitchers and our position players. I'm so all in on that machine. Yeah. I'm really, really excited about Proteus.
Next level. We're still working through it ourselves, but there's some really encouraging stuff that's going to be able to help a lot of programs. I think we shore up all the data and what it means and how to apply it to the actual interventions. So
well, and that's honestly, we're getting a baseline on our guys right when they come back on Proteus. We're starting to build out our protocols on that.
Yep.
On that, and I think it's probably going to be. I mean, it's going to be a game changer, and we're going to be slowly building in exactly how and changing how we use it all the time. But it's going to be a game changer. So that's the second floor, and then state of the art training room, hot tub, cold tub, everything that we need to it's a training room's a place you hope the kids never have to go, but when they're in there, you want it to be great. So training room, and then a weight room. That's not for full team lifts. We'll still do it. We have another weight room for our full team lifts. We have a weight room if you imagine size wise like a large hotel, like a hotel weight room. That's something that would fit maybe 5 to 7 people. We, like I said, it's not for team lifts. This is your Friday starter gets a Saturday lift. It's guys get an extra lift on a Tuesday after a game. It's that type of a weight room. You can get a full lift in there. You just can't get. It's not 35 guys lifting in there, which is, which was designed on purpose. It's a auxiliary type weight room.
To me, it's big. None of that, guys can warm up pre-games and things like that. Those are
Absolutely.
clutch.
Your all your
Cold
your
weather.
pregame stuff. Your pregame stuff, your post store stuff. And again, you go get a great lift in there.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And so it might be, and as we continue to move into this building, I mean, we're literally in the still, we just moved in November, but maybe your group one pitchers lift down there on Tuesday night, in the fall on Tuesday after practice. Like,
Yeah.
those five guys get that lift in there, and then the other guys lift with the team, say Wednesday morning. You start having all those different abilities, because I also really do believe in a team lift.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am all in on that, of guys, even though obviously everybody's not doing the exact same thing
Mhm.
in the weight room. You have pitchers and position players and starters and relievers and different guys focusing on different things in the weight room. But the idea that we're all in there together, working
Yeah.
through stuff and grinding stuff out, and I think is critically important. So I do still love the team lift. And then on the locker room, a beautiful locker room that we're really, really lucky and extremely fortunate to have, and then a lounge kind of connected off to the side of it. So everything's full, all the technology and everything that we can put. Again, you talk about 3 years before this building, we didn't have a great place to sit down and go through film.
Yeah.
And to go through scouting reports. And now you can do that in the hospitality suite. You can do it we have TVs everywhere. You can do the lounge. You can do the locker room. You can do it we'll be able to have the day's starting pitcher up on the TV in the batting cages while the guys are hitting off a machine that's got the same stuff that guy has that they're facing today. I mean, the abilities, and the fun thing is, we've already shown that we can develop guys at a high level with no facilities.
Mhm.
Now, to be able to add facilities and some of this technology, like we just talked about, which we've had some of, but
Yeah.
it's really, really exciting. It's
And
really, really exciting.
and to have it all there conveniently is key. Like, I've come to realize that just having the fields and the cages and the mounds all right there, instead of having to hop in the car and drive a quarter mile up the road to play catch, it's a game changer, particularly when you got college kids where there's a busy schedule and you're not having to track them all over campus nearly as much.
And I agree. And these kids, they're torn. And hey, this is not a complaint, right? Because all of us would love to be where these kids are right now.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of stuff going on. This
Yep.
place is really hard academically, and they work really hard at baseball. And on top of that, they're college kids, and they want to have a little bit of a social life, and right. So like, there's a lot going on in these guys' lives, and then when you add in their draft year, when you add in the in the fall, having to mix in meeting with scouts and which are virtual right now, but like, there's a lot for these guys. So if you can make it simpler on them, and make their life a little bit easier, like you said, we can throw here, we can long toss here, you can get your arm, you're gonna get all your stuff done, and then you can head out. It's great.
I like it. All right, so we always do a lightning round on the tail end of everyone. It's kind of quick hitter answers. What's one book that every player should read?
One of my favorites, that I really believe, I think it has changed this. The idea has changed some careers. Carol Dweck wrote a book, Mindset, talks about growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And I think for young kids, I think a lot of kids that we recruit get stuck in a fixed mindset when they think they're either good or bad at something. And learning and understanding that idea of, no matter what it is, I can get better at it. I think that's a game changer for a lot. That idea is a game changer for a lot of young players.
Love it. What about a book every coach should read?
Let me give you a couple. Actually, one, I love Tony Dungy's stuff.
Yep.
So he's got a couple. Quiet Strength was one of them, and his leadership books. I love Tony Dungy's books, and I also love Talent Code. I think that's a really good one.
Nice. All right, if you could go back in time and give Mike Gambino some advice 20 years ago, as you're kind of first starting your coaching career, what would it be?
Well, I think I was I had a little bit of the, and I don't mean this as an actual fight, but like I wanted to fight everybody, and I don't mean actually fight everybody, but like, this is what we want to do, and whatever we like, let's go. And I think I sort of wanted to, I guess, argue more than fight. Right? I wanted to kind of, I was more into, I would argue with people over stuff instead of, like, sometimes it's not worth that fight.
Yeah. Get it right instead of be right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly.
All right. So fourth one, favorite coaching memory.
I tell you what, one of my favorite coaching memories, and it's going to at first seem obvious, but not because what you think. One of my favorite coaching memories actually was right before the Super Regional in 2016, the Thursday night. This is when the draft was then.
Yeah.
And we took the team to dinner, and that's when that's the first night
Done,
night
right?
of the draft. Yeah, that's when Justin got drafted. Now the reason that's one of my favorite coaching memories, and not because Justin got drafted in the first round. I mean that was cool, but for me, I was sitting there watching it, and when Justin gets drafted, I watched 35 guys. There's a moment in the restaurant that the guys are hugging everybody, jumping up and down, and you legitimately can't tell whose life just got changed right there. So when I look back at that moment, I mean, yes, Justin being drafted was cool, but the reason it was a coaching, one of my favorite coaching memories is that's a true brotherhood. When you had this many guys, everybody in that room has been working since they were 4 years old to hear their name called right there.
Yeah.
But if you watch those, I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday, and it wasn't you don't know how the guys are going to react when Justin's name's called. You know what I mean? And those guys, I mean, they hugged him. They love. And again, if you look at any face in that thing, you think that's the guy that just got drafted in the first round. That idea that we had a group, and it's something that's important in our program, and I believe we have that most years in this program. I really do. It's something that we talk about, that brotherhood. Seeing that brotherhood actually act out in a completely unscripted moment that nobody knew was going to happen, is one of my favorite coaching memories.
I love it. All right, last one. We have a lot of kids and parents who listen to this podcast together in the car on the way to games or practices. If you give one bit of advice to the kids and the parents, what would it be?
I think what's happening a lot now, and I think social media is adding this idea has always happened, but social media makes it worse and worse and worse. It's everybody is so caught up in what everybody else is doing, and everything from, I mean, you hear it from kids saying, "Well, I got to commit because other kids are committing." It's like, well, who cares what other kids are doing? Have you found the place that you like? Is that the place you want to go? Like, right? Or, I got to throw my breaking ball like this because this is what Trevor Bauer said and I'm not knocking Trevor Bauer, right? This is how Trevor Bauer says he throws it. It's like, well, you're not Trevor Bauer. It's okay, man. Just, right? I think kids, parents are so caught up in what everybody else is doing instead of just focusing on what they're doing. And, this somewhat loops back, not to get too long-winded about it, but when you talk about our hitters and infielders, one of the things that's really important to me is help these players become their best authentic self.
Yeah.
So I don't want Sal Frelick and Cody Morissette to try to do the exact same thing. There are certain things you have to do with your hit plan and certain things you have to do to be ready to hit, but let's worry about Cody being the best Cody. Let's worry about Sal being the best Sal. Their bodies are different. Their games are different. Their skill sets are different. So let's just do that, and it's okay. And you can talk to each other about that, right? But I just think we're so externally focused and not focused enough on what are the things I do well, what are the things I don't, what do I have to improve on, what makes me good, and how do I become the best version of myself, and how do I figure out what's best for me in these scenarios?
Absolutely. Be where your feet are. It's a good important message.
I love that. We talk about, my guys hear me say that all the time.
Hey, this is awesome. Folks can find you on Twitter under BC Baseball. It's at BC Birdball. You guys have done some really cool stuff in building a program. Obviously, done some remarkable charity work through Pete's Foundation, and really really cool to see what you guys have done with a program that was on the up and up, and you took it to the next level. So congratulations on all your success, and thanks so much for taking the time with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on, and like I said, I'm really just as a friend to be able to watch what you've built is awesome and amazing, and I really appreciate you letting me be part of this podcast.
Right on. Well, good luck this year. We'll be cheering for you.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd be thrilled if you'd consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving us a review to read on iTunes. We welcome your suggestions for future guests and questions. Just email elitebaseballpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for your continued support, and we'll see you next episode.